It's time. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the moment we've been waiting for a while. I've been waiting for it. I'm sure some of you have been waiting for this. I'm very excited about this. We finally get to talk about the first half of Arc 7. Now, there's a lot to go into with this video, even though it's the first half. But man, I gotta say, right, not that I had a bad impression of the arc from, an outside type of perspective, like from the perspective of, not at that point yet, right, of reading it. Not to say I had a bad impression of it, but I wasn't super looking forward to Arc 7, even though, obvious things in there that would make me happy. I was a little bit just on and off about it, right? Because a lot of the stuff I saw online, right, it was like people throwing buzzwords around, right? I saw a whole bunch of shit. I saw the word Chaos Flame, didn't know what that meant. I saw some shit relating to children, didn't know what that meant. Understand now, bit weird, but you know what, it works. I saw a whole bunch of other shit, right, like all these sort of just words flying around. That to me, it sounded like the strangest shit ever. Even with the context of EX4 in there, right? It was still like, I don't know what the fuck people were talking about here, right? None of it made sense. Of course, upon reading it, a lot more made sense, and I won't lie, Arc 7 actually turned out to be really fucking good. It's shocking to me because I almost want to say it's better than Arc 5, but at the same time it's not done yet, and I do know about certain things that happen later, and I want to see what my opinion will be on that when I get to those points. Should mention, we're going up to Volume 4 with this video, right, or what is the equivalent of Volume 4, which is the equivalent of Chapter 54 for the web novel and all that. So that should just be mentioned. I'm only going that far with this because I mentioned that in the past. I mentioned that we were going this far, not further. I almost did want to just throw Volume 5 in there as a surprise. We're not doing that, right? Unfortunately. But yeah, we're going that far. However, I do know about a certain something that I think happens later around Volume 5, and I mean, look, I'm not gonna say it's gonna ruin the whole arc for me, right? I think it'll probably be fine still, right? I'll still enjoy it a lot. But I don't know if it'll be better than Arc 5 if that thing isn't handled very well. In case you're wondering what I mean, if you've been around, social media concerning Arc 7 a decent bit, I'm going to simply word it as just the word mobile, alright? I'm putting the word mobile on here. That has an affiliation with a character that people have, been giving a nickname to and everything. And, depending on how I, go through that, think of it, all that, that might change my opinion a little bit of the arc, because that might get rid of, some things that made it good. But, and that might sound bad, but you're gonna have to hear me out when we get to that point. I'll make a follow-up video if I don't enjoy it. How about that? Alright, if I think there's something wrong, I'll make a follow-up video. If you don't see a follow-up video within, I'm gonna say 2 months, especially because, I'm saying 2 months specifically because of reasons I'll get into later. But if you don't see a follow-up video within 2 months that's related to that, good news, I'm probably fine with it. If you do, well then you know what it's there for. But other than that, Arc 7 was really fucking good. I will say, it is strange because I didn't understand what people meant by Arc 7 will be a while till it's done. I didn't think that was the case. I mean, we're all, at this point, we're 5 volumes in. I didn't get why. After reading it, I kind of get why now. But we'll go more into that with the review. But I mean, honestly, we might as well just get into it because I'm very excited. I want to speak about it. I might even just forget details because I'm talking about all this and then, I forget about certain things, so that's a little bit unfortunate. Also should be noted, I should just mention, of course, some of it, right, the way I've been reading it, may have been machine translated, so There's no guarantee that it's entirely correct. It's overall correct from what I understand. I pretty much understood everything they were saying, but there might have been something that could possibly have been fucked up in the translation. I don't know. We'll find out, right? I know some names are a little bit funky sometimes with translations and shit like that, or like machine translations and stuff like that. So, you know, well, we'll see how it all ends up when we have, you know, the proper translations and everything. Also, should note this before we really get into it, but we're talking about Arc 7. I'm leaving out a lot of details when I'm talking about it right now, because this is a major spoiler zone, huge spoiler zone, immense spoiler zone. This is the latest arc. There's a lot that happens here, a lot, and if you are not caught up or anything, right, if you haven't even finished, I'd say like Arc 6, I do not recommend continuing watching and all that, right? If you really feel like it, sure, go ahead. And I mean, of course, if you've read up to this point or like, you know, are fully caught up, all that shit, go ahead, of course, with that. But I would say that if, you know, you don't want to be spoiled on the series, anything like that, please do not continue further. This is like the worst video you could have picked on the channel for this type of shit. It is, I mean, okay, I guess Arc 6 would also be kind of bad, but like, this is definitely, I'd say, the worst because of simply just as soon as we go into it, there's going to be some problems, right? So, with that out of the way, please just click off. I'm going to give you all just 10 seconds to just go, right? Just go ahead, right? And after that's up, we shall begin. And I guess the 10 seconds have passed right about now, I would assume. So, yeah, let's get into it. Arc 7, I've been very much looking forward to this. Let's do it. Volume 1 time. So now we start Arc 7, and something really interesting I'm going to note here is I like how immediately there's danger, right? Of course I'm going to like recap everything that happens overall, but I will say just right off the bat, I do love the immediate danger here. I think this is something that it has honestly over previous arcs, including stuff like Arc 6, is as soon as it begins, we got a problem. Like, first chapter, we have a loop already. The first chapter. That is pretty fucking good, right? That is like, I think quicker than any previous arc. I don't know about Arc 1. I don't know if Arc 1's Chapter 1 immediately had it, and it'll be a while till I find out. More on that later. Trust me, don't worry, it won't be like any bad news, or at least overall any bad news. It's just like something we'll go into later. But anyways, I don't think even Arc 1 was this quick, but maybe I'm wrong. But it's like, damn, alright, just right off the bat, here we go. But anyways, going into the events. So, we've hit the end of, you know, what essentially is Arc 6, and now everybody's here. There's Subaru, there's Rem, who's now awake, except she has amnesia, but she's awake, right? And then there's Louise, and oh man, Louise, I can't wait to talk about more in this fucking video. But we have all three of them now in the kingdom of Vollachia. I learned how to pronounce it, thanks to all of you. But it's now, you know, we're in the kingdom of Vollachia, everything, and now we have a problem. Except, of course, they don't know that fully yet. But, you know, as it currently stands, that's where we're at. And now we have the problem of Subaru's scent, right? This was a problem with previous arcs and everything, but this is once again an Arc 2 type of moment between Subaru and Rem, where it's like he has that scent and she doesn't trust him as a result. But the thing is, it's not necessarily like before, where, you know, there was some affiliation, of course, with why she didn't trust him. No, now she has amnesia, doesn't remember anything, but he just smells bad and it's awful and everything, and she doesn't understand why, right? There's just something different about him compared to everybody else. But after a bit, you know, he tries to tell her something and gain her trust. It's a little bit hard because of his scent and all that, and she doesn't know if he can, or she can, trust him, considering he's some random person in front of her, right? It's understandable. And after just a whole bunch of them talking and everything, two things really. First of all, Rem can't walk, for obvious reasons. You know, Arc 6, Rem fighting, lie, right? It makes sense on why she can't walk. And then the second thing, which is Louise. Now, this, I do like this dynamic with Arc 7 a lot, because Louise, from like both of their perspectives, is technically correct, I'm gonna say. Like, for Rem seeing Louise, it makes sense that she sees Louise as a child, right? Just a normal child who's just there, like, helpless by themselves, all that. And for Subaru, it's understandable, because this character has caused him and his entire group hell for a while. I mean, like, I guess it was more so her siblings, but she also caused him some trouble. She caused some trouble with some of the, like, previous loops that were there in Arc 6 and all that, right? She's done a decent bit, and arguably she might have been the most evil out of all of them. I'm not trying to justify the other two, but at the same time, at least the other two had the quote-unquote justification of it was for their sister, whereas she didn't have any reasoning like that, right? So technically, it's like she was the most evil out of all of them. But, you know, now she's here on the floor, throwing a tantrum, all that, right? And, of course, Subaru doesn't want to bring her along for obvious reasons, right? His own obvious reasons. But that causes Rem to distrust him. She gets him into a chokehold, knocks him out for about, I think, like an hour or so. I don't remember if it's an hour or half an hour, whatever amount of time it is. And she takes Louise away with her. And, you know, she just scurries off. And then Subaru tries to go find her and is promptly shot by an arrow. That is chapter 1, by the way. Shot by an arrow. Chapter 1. Damn, alright, right off the bat. So then the loop happens, and it's actually after the chokehold. And that is something really insane. Because it's like, oh shit, now he's gonna have to find his way towards her. Hopefully gain her trust after what just happened, right? All this shit. So he figures out overall a general idea what to do, because Rem has placed a whole bunch of traps around the area, and now he has to make his way through. And now, you know, this is a problem for him where he's trying to get through the traps. He's trying to be careful of this hunter that he fought with there that shot at him, right? And now all of this is just one big problem for him. Eventually, he gets through some things, finds a camp, and is then, like, held at sword point, I guess. You know, somebody's holding him just by his neck with a sword, right? All that. And he meets a man who's, you know, asking him some questions, who he's with, all this shit. And Subaru is just, like, essentially showing that he's not any threat or anything. And afterwards, that man gives him a knife to go through the grass and everything. And, you know, Subaru warns him of a hunter and all that. You know, they have a nice exchange there. And it goes away and cuts through the grass. In case anybody's wondering, yeah, I knew who it was immediately. I mean, I mostly didn't know about the whole scenario with this arc, so I did know who it was immediately. But anyways, Subaru gets through the grass, and we have this interesting, I'm gonna say, fight in a way, where it's him trying to figure out all the traps and get behind, like, Rem's thinking, and then, you know, make his way towards her. And once he's made his way towards her, there's the fight there, I guess, kind of, you know, it involves the traps and her trying to grab him and all that shit, right, like, possibly knock him out again. Right, it's understandable on why she's acting like this, because he acted like an asshole to a child, but it makes sense on why he acted like an asshole to a child. And then, you know, an attack is sent towards them and everything. Subaru tries to grab Rem, moves her out of the way, all that, right? And after that, we find out that there's a giant snake witch beast here, along with that hunter that was there. You know, I mean, it's constant, like, them trying to figure out what to do, and they get out of a hole, and then Subaru grabs Louise and they're running. But now there's, you know, a snake witch beast, there's the hunter, right? There's all these problems around, and now the hunter and the snake Witch Beast are fighting. They're trying to figure out what to do, and eventually they come to the conclusion of jump off this giant waterfall we see, and they jump off. They manage to get out, right? They survive, but they're all knocked out afterwards, essentially, because I mean that would do it. And then from there, once they wake up, we meet two new characters who are holding them hostage in a way, which is Todd, a generally nice guy who, you know, I was starting to really be like, oh man, this dude's nice, he's great, I like him. And then Jamal, who's a much more, you know, angry, opposite of Todd, right? Not nice is what we're gonna say, right? And of course they're trying to interrogate Subaru and trying to figure out what's happening. They're trying to see if he's part of this group, this clan called the Shutterrockians, I think that's it. And, you know, essentially Subaru, after some talking and everything, and overall the general feel of things, it's made clear that he isn't part of them. So Todd just pretty much asks him, hey, you know what, help out around here, we'll see if we can figure out a way to get you out of here and everything. And it's from here that Subaru pretty much realizes that he's in Vollachia, which is a huge problem because he and Rem are somebody who is from Lagunica, and you know, they have that whole pact that one person can't be, you know, in the other place, all that type of shit, right? That would create a problem. So now that's part of the problem, of course. I mean, it kind of always was, but now especially, right? But then, you know, Subaru's just trying to help out and everything. And after a while, you know, he's helping out with them, figuring out some stuff, all this, helping out with the tents and everything. And we see Louise more and more trying to, like, happily grab onto him and everything. But after some, you know, overall interactions with Todd and everything and their group, we eventually get to the point where Subaru is, like, being grabbed by Jamal and all this shit, right? And Jamal is just, you know, beating the shit out of him like he did before. I should mention he had his foot in his mouth earlier when he was being interrogated. So, you know, Jamal is, as you can see, not the nicest. But then Louise tries to stop him. And it was at this moment where my brain, you know, saw that action. It read the text, it saw that action, and I went, hold on. Something's weird here. Because Louise is acting real nice towards him. Now, obviously, it's probably something like she has amnesia or something, right? Like, similar to Rem, right? That was the thing I assumed from the very beginning. Even at, like, the end of Arc 6, right? But seeing this, I was sitting there, I'm like, there's something else to this. It doesn't necessarily feel like amnesia. It feels like something else, and I'll go further into this later. But this was the start of it. This was where I really started to realize, like, something's wrong here. And, you know, and part of that was the fact that she was being super fucking clingy to Subaru and all that. And, you know, after a bit and everything, Jamal essentially fucks off and all that. And it should be noted that the night before, Subaru had mentioned to Todd, or it might have actually been the same morning or like the night before. I think it was the night before. Subaru mentioned to Todd that there was yes, it was actually. Sorry, it's a little bit hard to recall a lot of events that you've essentially seen recently. It's easier to recall the more recent ones than the older ones, of course. But he mentions to Todd the day before the fact that there's a witch beast in the forest, and that creates a problem for them, especially because witch beasts aren't super common in Vollachia. Like healers, witch beasts, that type of shit isn't common in Vollachia, which was interesting to hear about the two things, right? Surprised to hear that healers weren't. Honestly, kind of makes sense almost with the way I got like the feel of Vollachia from EX4. I kind of expected healers weren't that common or something like that. It just didn't seem like it, right? And then, of course, witch beasts. Yeah, I guess it makes sense because I didn't see that many there, right? And it was like, yeah, I guess that is a surprising thing. But he's surprised by that info and he keeps it in mind. He gets his group ready, all that shit. And then, first I should mention the fact that Rem mentions to Subaru that him acting nice and all You know, it's nice, but he hasn't even asked Subaru and them for their name, and it's just a little bit suspicious on how he acts, right? It doesn't feel right. And honestly, when she mentioned that, I did actually agree with, like, her thought process, because I was like, yeah, it is a bit strange the way he's acting right now and everything. And I mean, it becomes abundantly clear once we get to this moment, because, you know, he's woken up. Todd mentions what he was able to do thanks to Subaru and all that, and they go outside to see the entire forest on fire, which means the Shuderakians that they were looking for, who were in the forest, that masked man, all of them are dead now, most likely. And, you know, Subaru gets shot by a little girl who's likely from their, you know, village and all that. And there's just absolute hate filled in her eyes and everything. And it is this moment where you can kind of see that while being a little bit, you know, distant with Subaru, right, Ren doesn't necessarily want to get too close to him because of his scent and all that, and she doesn't know if she can trust him. It does show that she's still nice and everything. She's still trying to see what she can do, if there will be others who will help him there, all that, right? But then the loop happens, and the loop goes all the way to when he's being interrogated. Now, what he of course tries to do here is, you know, reason with them and everything, right? Because now he knows how, like, he knows that Todd is a nice person, so obviously he can be nice to Todd and everything, and they'll figure something out, right, from here. That doesn't work. Todd sees this as some sort of, he's trying to deceive him, all that type of shit, right, put on a face, all that. So Todd essentially becomes the, like, psycho here and starts, like, puts a knife into him, I think, or something like that, right? Some shit, and it's just like, oh man, right? And, like, it's very clearly, I think it's the knife that, you know, the masked man gave to him. He, like, essentially took out and, you know, put into him. And it shows you here the difference between these two scenarios and everything. And now Todd's, you know, not really sure about keeping him alive and everything. And Rem and Louise are now in this just like, ooh, type of scenario, right? Because of what's going on. And now we've entered the problem of Subaru has to get out of this scenario, which he tries to lie and say he's a, you know, Shuderakian, right? And he tries to mention the fact that he bought Rem and Louise, so he doesn't really care what they do with them. You know, obviously all lies and everything. He's essentially trying to find the best way he can get out of this scenario and all that. And he tells them he'll take them to his village in exchange for his own life and all that, right? Like he'll be fine as long as he can bring them there. So they start moving there, and then the witch beast comes. And this is actually some great thinking, because I didn't even fully realize it until getting to this point. But it made me realize, oh shit, right, he went through a loop. His scent would be stronger. That witch beast is more likely to come. So, of course, right, but by him going into the forest, it now smells that scent and goes towards them. It now attacks their group. Subaru starts running away, only for an axe to be thrown near him, and it's from Todd, right? And now we get to see, like, I'm gonna say Todd's true nature, this absolute killing machine with, like, no emotion, essentially. And, you know, after a while running, Subaru's definitely, like, decently injured, right? But he's trying his best to run away. And eventually, you know, he knocks himself out from how fast he's running and all that, and everything. And now he wakes up, he's not dead, but he's in a cage with the dude from before, right, the masked man, and now they're both in just a singular cage and have to figure out what the fuck is going on with the current scenario, right? And the current scenario just so happens to be they're in the village of the Shuderakians, and now they have to figure out how to get out of the cage. The biggest thing is they try to reason with them, right? Subaru tries to mention what's going to happen. They don't believe it one bit. So then the other man, who were, I'm just going to give him the name, because I don't know if he's actually named here, but we're just going to name him anyways. Abel, right? Abel essentially tells them he and Subaru will take the lifeblood ritual, which is this big thing that they have. It's like a coming of age thing for people, but it's also a way to prove yourself, and this is something that, you know, now Subaru and Able take. And they have to, essentially for theirs, fight the witch beast, the snake one, and if they can kill it, they've proven themselves, right? It takes a lot of fighting and everything, and it's like a constant, you know, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna strategize what's going on and everything? And eventually, Subaru gets the idea from a ring that Able gives him, which can, you know, shoot fire magic. He takes that ring, he manages to get on top of the snake and just punches the horn and blows up the ring, blows off the horn, and also fucks up his own arm in the process. And from there, he's essentially like, all of this is done, it's been decided, right? They trust them now. They're gonna go and get Rem and Louise back from, you know, the encampment there, and they'll also burn down the encampment because, you know, this information now seems reliable because they've proven themselves. They've like essentially shown that they're not lying in a way via these actions. And after this, we're, you know, back to Subaru being conscious again. Rem and Louise have been brought back, all this shit, right? And here's something interesting. This is something that made me go, oh fuck. Is since Arc 5, Subaru's arm has been, you know, completely black because of the black blood from Capella. And this was something really fucking interesting to read, was just the fact that it got blown off, right? But then it was recreated, and now like the black bits of it were just like falling off essentially. Which, I don't know if that's like, it's weird. It's one of two things there. One, that shows that the blood was still acting on a regeneration process, which it technically, we know it was. I mean, look at Arc 6, right? When he had the like scratches on his arm, they were being healed over time, right? Specifically on that arm faster than the other. And then, you know, just, it makes sense with this scenario of like, oh, his arm got just essentially fucked over. Well, now it's healed thanks to that black blood. But something else I was thinking, and obviously, there's a chance it might not be correct. I mean, I don't even remember what even was used in that fight. There was a lot used in the Capella fight. But I was almost thinking like, maybe it's something heat related or something like that. That could be a weakness for her. Who knows, right? We'll find out later, of course, in the series, but right now it's just this, like, I wonder what this might be and everything, right? Because it's odd that the, like, just arm is essentially now back to normal, right? He has his proper arm back. A little bit weird, right? It almost feels like there's something else there, because it's not like that was happening when he had the scratches and everything, right? When his arm was fucked up before. I guess now it's been blown off, so like, I guess it's more fair that it would, you know, flake off. But it's a bit odd to me that now, of all times, is doing that, right? It almost seems like a specific circumstance. Anyways, with that out of the way, you know, Subaru's pretty badly injured to the point that he probably won't make it, right? He's probably gonna die here and all that. And he's essentially just dying in Rem's arms and everything, because, like, he's mentioning to her a whole bunch of shit and how he just wanted to see her smile and everything, and she's trying to get him back and everything, because he seems a bit odd. His scent is weird and she doesn't know if she can trust him fully, but he doesn't necessarily seem like a bad person at this point. And it's here now where Louise walks in and essentially does a healing magic type of thing to, like, Rem, and from there Rem learns how to use it and does it to Subaru, so now he's essentially being healed and he'll be fine. This also adds to it, by the way, what I was thinking about Louise, because it's like, I know she was capable, probably, of a decent bit of magic, right? Most likely. But it's almost a bit odd that it's this, right? That's what I was just thinking to myself. It's just like, a little bit odd that it's this. But, you know, after that whole spiel, we go back to Abel, who essentially reveals who he is, that he's Vincent Vollachia. Right. Mentioned that I knew who it was, and then, yeah, there it is. But he's Vincent Vollachia, and he plans to have Subaru assist him in getting his throne back, since he's been overthrown now by the Prime Minister dude from EX4, who brought the head of one of the traitors, but it wasn't the traitor. You know the whole deal probably now if you've seen the EX novel video. I don't even actually remember if I fully went into that specific part. I think I did. And I mean, if you've read it, of course you know the whole deal, but yeah. And with that, we end Volume 1. A decent bit is there, but man, it also, like, almost feels like, I guess because, the loop there happens, and then we're back to, like, square one almost, in a way, or, like, close to it, right? It's like, I guess it doesn't really feel like an insane amount of progression, but now we've progressed, and now we're on to the next step of things. So, on to Volume 2. So now we're on to Volume 2, and of course, the big plan here is that they essentially need to do more in order to get the throne back, or at least Vincent does. Subaru's not really huge on this plan. He doesn't really want to assist Vincent, especially because he doesn't want to, cause any sacrifices for people and everything. Like, the Empire has way more forces than they do, right? So, essentially Subaru agrees that he's just going to go fuck off with Rem and also Louise by, proxy. And they leave, and they're going now to a fortress city. It's there, I think, Gural, something like that. There's a G in there, that's what I know. And they're moving, they're making their way there, right? And eventually, along this time, Subaru's mentioning to Ren that she has a sister and everything, and Ren's trying to find, that sister, because he mentions the whole connection they have, everything. It's a nice little chat that's in there. That chapter actually about it was shockingly short. Very short. I read it in 10 minutes, I'm not gonna lie. But it does add the whole layer to, now she understands a bit more about her circumstance and everything, and that she has a sibling. There is somebody that knows her and all that, especially somebody close, who's a twin of hers, right? But they make their way to the city, and of course they have to go through a just inspection by the front, right, to get in. And they essentially get the help of the, I want to say O'Connell siblings, something like that, right? One Flop, one Medium, that's their names, right? Flop and Medium. And I will say, just before we go further into the story, I do really like both of them. Genuinely, it's weird. I'm not really huge on the, I'm gonna say a brother-sister type of dynamic where they're working off each other. I'm not always huge on that, but I will say I did really like it this time, right? I did really like it with this. I like both of these characters. I don't know if I'd say, they're close to top 10 worthy, but I'd definitely say they're pretty damn great, right? I'd definitely say they're pretty good. But, they meet them, they figure out the whole scenario of getting in and everything thanks to them. And they of course make up the excuse that Subaru and Rem are husband and wife and Louise is their child. And after that, they make it in, they go to an inn with all of them, right? They're all essentially grouped up there. And from there, Subaru and Flop head towards a tavern to get some help with certain things, of course, right? With getting out and all that, right? Because they obviously want to get to their destination. And now we have a problem because Subaru's constantly being killed here. I'm just going to make it brief because it happens a lot, and there's a lot to remember about these deaths, but it is constantly being killed, and it just so happens to be Todd who's doing it. Todd has followed him all the way here, planned out every action he could, and is just constantly, every single time, he tries to hire an assassin at one point, right? Subaru tries to hire an assassin to take care of Todd, right? Or a mercenary, I guess, because assassin, at least in this series, I guess, has a different meaning, considering, But he tries to hire a mercenary to essentially take care of him, right? Bodyguard and all that, right? And doesn't work out at all. That dude still gets killed, So does Flop. Flop gets killed a lot here. So does Subaru, of course. It's a lot. But eventually, after a while, Subaru trying to figure out what to do, right? Because he can't run to the tavern, he can't run to the inn, he can't go into the crowd, there'll probably still be something. He just yells out at Todd, right? He tells Todd he knows he's there. That does it, because he realizes after having a talk with Todd on the previous loop that he is a person who, you know, will kill out of fear, almost, right? Out of fear that something could become greater and all that type of shit, right? And that does it, because, you know, that essentially tells Todd, oh shit, he knows I'm here. I gotta back the fuck off, right? And now this gives him a chance to run away. He gets into the inn, tells like Rem and all them that they're leaving. Rem has not unpacked her luggage, and that creates quite the scenario for him, right? It's a little bit, ooh, right? And from there, they try and move out, and they have to fight the Imperial soldiers that are there and everything. They're doing pretty well. I mean, Medium's handling Jamal decently and all that shit, right? And eventually they get out. Todd almost just fucking kills Subaru, and almost does it again until it's revealed that two of the people who are from the Shidarakians, right, just so happen to be nearby, right? Holly and Kuna, I want to say, I think was the other one there. I know there is one like Kuna, and I'm trying to remember if that is the one there. I think she is. Yeah, so Holly and Kuna are there. Todd gets shot and is blown off and everything, and now they're overall safe. But what this tells Subaru is the fact that those two were there, right? The fact that they said they'd keep an eye on them before they entered the city, and then as soon as they exited, you know, they helped them out. What that tells Subaru is Vincent was expecting this the whole time. So then he goes to Vincent, you know, complains at him and a whole bunch of shit, right? Because this is now something he expected. And now they have to come up with a plan to get him there, because they have to seize this area if they're going to essentially just survive and make it all the way up. And Subaru just essentially agrees to help at this point. But they want to do this as a bloodless type of thing, right? This is overall, the plan is to get Flop to agree as well, right? Flop and Medium to agree, all them. Or more so, I guess, Flop to agree. And, you know, have Vincent be fine with it. They have to find a bloodless siege where they can get in, take the city, and not cause any problems, right? So it works for both of them, because Flop doesn't want to see, you know, people like killed or anything and all that because of the past he had with Medium and all that with their orphanage. And Vincent has zero problems making sacrifices, right? But he doesn't want to like do things via communication, right? Just talking to people, because he thinks that's silly, right? For obvious reasons. So now he has to figure out what to do there. And of course, like, Rem also kind of wants something like this. And I think it's here where she mentions she wasn't going to run away, right? Like, that's not why her luggage was unpacked. Or, like, yeah. Or no, it was packed. I said unpacked. Shit. Why her luggage was packed and everything. She wasn't going to run away. It's just like, you know, she still does trust Subaru overall. Or maybe not trust, but, you know, there's a sense of he knows her, and she knows that he's overall not a bad person, right? Even if he still acts weird towards Louise, and she doesn't really like that, right? But eventually, Subaru comes up with a plan that he's used before in, like, arcs 1 to 2, 1 to 3, something like that, right? Which I do know about, right? I do know about that stuff. I haven't read those side story things, I guess, but I do know about them. And with that, he creates the plan of cross-dressing. I saw the image of him cross-dressing on his wiki page, and I'm gonna be honest, I thought that was a mistake. I can't even lie, it was done so well, right? They mentioned the fact that, like, these transformations are done so well that the characters can't even recognize them. I couldn't even fucking recognize them when I first saw him. I genuinely looked at Subaru's page and I'm like, where is he? Where? Even though, you know, there was a character in his white, black, and yellow colors. I was just looking around like, which one? I was confused as shit. But eventually from this, they managed to be a dancer, you know, like instrumental group type of thing. And this appeases to, I don't know how to pronounce the dude's name, but put it on screen, that guy, the man who was essentially in charge of that whole city, they managed to go there and, in a way, pique his interests. And they essentially take a sword to his neck. He calls off his soldiers. They burn down the flag. Boom. Now the situation is handled. They've taken over the city. And, all the soldiers are fucked at this point. Even Todd and Jamal realize well, we might as well retreat, right? This is essentially how they feel. And that's how this situation would go, right? It'd be completely just bloodless siege. It'd be perfect, right? Should also mention, by the way, just random thing, but I felt it was decently funny. Is Subaru figuring out a plan, and Ren being oh wow, he figured out a plan, and then comes out cross-dressed, and she's alright, it was stupid to fucking trust him. It's a pretty funny moment, even if it is a little bit it is a real distrust there almost, right? It is kind of a funny moment. But anyways, from here, we receive the problem of one of the divine generals have entered the scenario. If you don't know, there's 9 divine generals in Vollachia. All of them are pretty damn strong, and depending on their rank, determines how strong they are, right? The higher, the stronger. And the one who happens to enter this field, right, and attack Miss Zelda, who, by the way, is the chief of the Shadowrockians. I didn't mention that before, but she is, right? The one who enters the scenario and attacks her and almost, attacks the Subaru and Ren and almost fucking kills them and everything, happens to be Vollachia, who I didn't know before. I mean, I guess if I, read EX5, which isn't out yet, so I can't even fully do that. But if it was out, and I did read it, I'd know where she overall was ranked. Probably. I don't know if she actually is one there, considering I think she's a child there. But, anyways, she's ranked 2nd. That caught me off guard, right? I knew there was a lot that, or there wasn't a lot, really, that wasn't, unranked currently, right? Overall, okay, there was the 2nd place, the 7th, the 3rd, 9th, I guess, because the dude from before is dead, right? From EX4 is dead. So now the 9th one is also open. I knew there weren't that many spots that were just unknown, right? But it did surprise me when a character enters in and it's oh, they're the 2nd strongest. Okay, right? So now this creates a problem because she's going around throwing essentially tornadoes with her stick that she has and all this shit, right? Causing some problems, burning people. At least I think she did that. There's one other person that I think could have done that, but it doesn't make sense. Right, because the way they worded it there towards the end, it's a bit worded weirdly towards the end, and it made me think it might have been somebody else, but I think it was Vollachia. Yeah, she's causing quite the problem here. And then by the end of this volume, somebody steps in to help because the Subaru is trying to protect Rem, but then somebody steps in front of them and causes this whole thing to stop. And that just so happens to be Priscilla. She's here now, and sadly we're going to have to get to volume 3 to talk about her, so if you're reading along, yeah, it sucks, but you're going to have to read to the next volume. But anyways, volume 3. Now we are at the 3rd volume, and okay, there's a lot to talk about here. I mean, the same with volume 4, I'd say. But, okay, so let's get into it. So, essentially Priscilla and Vollachia are fighting, fighting in quotations, because Vollachia just gets fucked over completely. Also, Al's there, and Al's fighting her a bit. She's also fucked over a bit, because she happens to be a spirit eater, which is somebody who's able to essentially just drain the mana in the area. But Vincent had, one of his own rings, right? It's the shit from earlier from volume 1. And he happened to break it, and that caused the mana in the area to just essentially overflow to the point that she got fucked over, right? And with that whole thing, she's essentially down. They can now just take her and interrogate her, right, and find out more about what's going on with the scenario. And it's from here that just out of nowhere, Todd and Jamal, show up. They grab her, they run away, or like they kill a few of the soldiers that are there, manage to get into the cell, grab her, run away, right? And now, essentially, Jamal is acting as a distraction almost to the people who are there, and Todd's running away, which really, the scenario that happens here, right? The scene that unfolds, genuinely shows just how emotionless Todd feels, right? Actual fucking psycho character. And, after that whole thing, like, damn, she's gone. This didn't work out that great considering some people are dead, right? And some people are injured a decent bit, and they don't even have somebody to interrogate. I mean, the biggest thing is like, yeah, sure, they have the city, but not much else is happening here, right? So now they have to figure out what to do, and Priscilla mentions to them that she'll cooperate with them, right? She'll collaborate if they can get the help of the Divine Generals, because depending on who has more Divine Generals, that essentially determines like the scenario going on, right, with the throne and everything, right? Whoever has more actually has, authority over the entire empire. And one of the very clearly made out things here is essentially Vollachia, obviously, is working with the Prime Minister, right? But there's also somebody else, somebody who would have to deceive them all and everything, because as it stands with the situation of Vollachia, it seems like the Emperor has not left, right? To them, they still see like Vincent and everything, right? Everybody there still sees Vincent, they're still speaking to him, all that shit. But he's with Subaru and all that. And it becomes clear that the one who is doing all this shit happens to be Cheese of Gold, the dude who's ranked 4th in the Divine Generals. So they already have 2, and there's 9 in total. So it's not a great start. Not a great start at all. So now they have to figure out what to do, all their planning. Doesn't help that Miss Zelda is essentially now out of commission, essentially, and passes on, the leader role to Tarita, right, who's another girl there, who is now the more important one, of course, right, as a result, and everything. And I mean, it does add to her as a character, right, because she doesn't know if she feels worthy as a chieftain, but like she's kind of forced to do this in a way, right? And oh man, I guess now we have to talk about it. I'm trying to think, like, just making sure I got most of the details in. I think I did, because we talked about the Divine Generals, we talked about that situation. So okay, it's time to talk about the chapter. So I knew about this chapter. I was well aware of it, and I knew it was still going to be painful when I got to it. So, if it isn't obvious, this is quite the problem in terms of a situation, right? There's a lot going on for the characters. A lot of it's bad. Some people are dead, some people are injured, right? Zelda's injured. And this is a heavy burden, of course, on Ren, right? She doesn't have her memories. She doesn't know how to heal properly, right? She feels like she could be better at it. All this shit, right? She feels like because of her amnesia, she's not good enough, and she could have handled this situation better, but she didn't. Also, actually, I do want to mention, weirdly enough, Vollachia and Priscilla were able to tell that she was an Oni, and I don't know how. That's fucking weird, right? I'm interested to know more, but it doesn't seem like something that's very obvious, right, that she is one. So that has me wondering, what the fuck can they see that nobody else can, right? I mean, I guess Vollachia saw her strength, and that maybe gave it away, right? Because she pushed a whole damn pillar towards her. But I don't know how Priscilla did it. I don't know if Priscilla saw that and also went, yeah, that's probably what it is. But, I mean, that's something interesting that I want to see more of. But anyways. So yeah, this is quite the burden on Ren. And eventually Subaru is starting to talk to her. Right, she's just seated there, and he started to talk to her, and she feels like everything's her fault and everything, but Subaru's mentioning the fact that, like, you know, he should have planned this out better, he should have this, that, and it all feels like his fault. And she's questioning him on why he's trying to take all these burdens and everything, right? All this shit, like, making it seem like all this is his own fault, right, for what has happened. And she's making it clear to him that it's like, you can't really do that much, right? It's not like you can do anything insane to help. She's not saying this overall in a mean-spirited way. At least that's not what I got from it. Though the way it ends, ooh, but it's overall just like explaining this to him, right? She's mentioning all that shit, and then she hits him with the line, which I was waiting for, and I knew it was coming, and it still fucking stung, dude. Of, "You're not a hero." And that fucks him up, right? There's something that I want to just, if I can, hopefully me editing can, you know, fit it on here. Somebody did a great explanation on the translation site that I'm just going to put right here. Somewhere, it might be like here, might be in the middle, might just be all over it, right? They were an anonymous user, so I can't actually properly shout them out, but they know who they are if they're seeing this, right? They did a great explanation of how this situation works, right? Like, it's really fucking good, and I agree with it. Because this really is like, this whole time, this driving point for Subaru was to, you know, get her back and, you know, have her see her hero again, right? But, you know, now she has amnesia, so now the goal is to get her memories back and have her see her hero again, or perhaps do something that almost fits that role, right? Having her say that fucks over the entire, like, thought process he had, right? It ruins him because this was his motivation, and now that motivation is gone. And it's like, fuck, like, that is actually painful to read, right? It's something that really hurts. But yeah, after that, you know, he goes out, he starts banging his head on a wall and everything, a whole lot, in fact. And then he has a nice chat with Al, and Al mentions to him that he essentially has to get, like, Ren's smile back and everything, right? And Al is going to do everything in his power to help out Subaru, like, genuinely. He means that honestly, to the point that he's away from Subaru when saying this, but he outright says Subaru's name there. He's like, you know, I'm going to help you out. Bro, no, not Subaru, right? Like, that type of thing. That's a really great moment. I do like that a lot. This does really fucking raise my opinion of Al. Like, Al I had pretty damn high. He's now close to top 10, I'm not even gonna lie to you. This stuff that happens later, what's already happened, right? And the fact that I'm interested to learn more about him, right? And I'll see more with EX5, which is exciting, right? All this shit does, like, shape him out to be better, and I do like that a lot. But this scenario overall, you know, helps Subaru and everything, right? He's not exactly in a better position now, but it is better in the sense that, you know, now he has some encouragement and everything. So now, the overall plan is, okay, we're gonna work on the next step, which is getting one of the Divine Generals. And from there, they figure out all the possible options they have for Divine Generals. The biggest one I see is Cecilis, who I actually mispronounced before, probably because it's written weird in the EX novels, but Cecilis seems like the best option there overall, kinda because he's the top ranked. But he isn't, because he's a bit of a crazy man and everything. So instead, and also he's not, like, insanely popular is what they say, right? There's a proper process to each Divine General that they should get, right? There's things that would make some better than others to get, even if there's higher ranked ones, right? And with that, they go along with the thought process of they're going to get the help of the 7th Divine General, Yorna. I think I'm saying that, yeah, Yorna is correct, because I think that's how you pronounce it, but I think it's written with a J. It's weird, because it's translated with a Y, which, albeit that's machine translation, so I don't know, right? But I think it's officially written with a J, like it's a Jorna, but I think you pronounce it Yorna. Um, but they decide to get her help, right? They're gonna move towards the Demon City. It's what it's known as, right? So it's Subaru, Medium, Al, and Vincent on their way there. It is them until one of the Shederakians, the little girl who I actually don't remember the name of. I remember the name of all of the rest of them. Don't remember the little girl's name. Reveals to Rem that she shoved Louise into the carriage. Right, Louise wanted to go and she shoved her in. And now Louise is also with them. So it's all 5 of them on their way to the Demon City of Chaos Flame. And this is Chaos Flame, which shocked me. Chaos Flame sounded like something else. And no, it is the name of the city, so that's interesting. But with that, that is essentially the actual last we see of Rem. Why must you disappoint me? But now we're headed towards the Demon City, and once they're there, you know, they're trying to figure out the whole situation of what to do. Subaru gets a letter, who he shall deliver to Yorna with, you know, Medium and Al, and they all go there to essentially meet her. Her big thing is, of course, meeting everybody at the same time, and while meeting everybody at the same time, they happen to stumble across Vincent, who isn't Vincent, it's Chiza. Olbert, I think is his name, the 3rd, you know, ranked Divine General. And another dude, I think it was like Kathma or something. He's a dude who was offered a position of Divine General, but refused it, right? He didn't feel like he was worthy or something like that, right? So they're there, and now this creates, you know, quite the scenario, because they have to essentially figure out what they're gonna do, right? They need to speak to Yorna and get that situation figured out, right? Like, and see what she thinks and if she'll join them. But then, you know, they're there, and that's a problem. So now it's this whole discussion that creates a scene and everything, and eventually they come to an agreement, because Al mentions that on events that transpired with EX5, he did a big task that he was, you know, he wanted a reward out of, and this reward just so happens to be, you know, Subaru giving the letter to Yorna, right? The allowing of that. Only just that, though, right? So he gives her the letter, and from there, chaos ensues, essentially, because now that group, right, Olbert and Kathma, I think, right? Honestly, still don't remember his name, right? I think that's how it was written, but I don't know. But they start fighting, you know, Subaru's group and everything, and they're trying to get out of there as best they can. Eventually, though, after some fucking chaos, they do make it out, albeit Olbert manages to injure all of them in a way. Except for, I mean, Al's a fucking scenario, but I mean, if you know certain things about Al, it makes sense, of course, right? They manage to get out of there, they fall into the haystack area that's nearby, and as a result of them surviving, Yorna will read the letter that night. So they all go home, back to the inn, and, you know, just discuss the situation. Vincent talks about it with them and, like, realizes, you know, Pantachiza, he realized probably that we're gonna be here, and he's specifically here to take care of us, right? And all that. But from there, they all go to sleep, because, you know, who knows, maybe the next day they'll be asked to go to the palace, and then they can figure out this whole scenario of what to do, right? If Yorna will join them, if she won't, right? So they all go to sleep, and then Subaru wakes up, and he is a child now. And this I knew about as well, but it's still weird. Still threw me off guard a bit. I will say, like, it's fine, of course, right? It's not anything too big of a problem, but it did seem decently jarring, even with, you know, the context of the scenario and everything, and how it makes sense now in a way. Bit weird, but it works. But anyways, with that, we move on to the last volume. We're going to cover Volume 4. And now we get to Volume 4, which honestly, this volume might have really done it for me, right? Might have been the volume that made me say, okay, this might be getting to that point where it's better than Arc 5, right? It is crazy what happens here, and we got a lot to discuss. Okay. So, they're now children. This creates a problem. And the attendant of Yorna, Tanza I believe is her name, right? Little dear girl, essentially mentions to them that Yorna would like to see all of the actual people who were there, right, along with the additional person, which is Abel / Vincent, right, all, at her meeting room, right. So this creates a problem, because everybody who was there is now children. Owl is a child, Medium's a child, Subaru is a child, right. And now they have to figure out what to do here. Like 5 seconds after that girl leaves, Olbert enters the scene. He's just in the room, making tea, discussing things with them. And the big thing that they overall agreed on was anybody who's in the city, right, after that letter is delivered and she reads it, nobody will be harmed until after that whole meeting, right? They meet, they see what happens, whatever, goes down might change the scenario, but until that happens, nobody gets harmed, right? Nobody attacks each other. So that's the big thing there. But Olbert's just here, and he's just asking them just about what's going on, everything. He's interested to see why they're, rebelling against the Emperor. And he just wants to know more, right? He's curious. He's a curious old man. And Subaru tries to essentially explain it to him with the simple method of, we'll just have Vincent take off his Oni mask, which, by the way, I didn't mention it earlier. I guess I should mention it here, because this is where the illustration is. I'm a little bit disappointed with what the Oni mask is. Like, I don't know, I hear Oni mask and I think of, the whole thing covering your face, the popped out eyes, something like that, right? Some creative drawing on it, that type of shit. I don't expect an over-the-eyes mask, and that's it. It's a little bit disappointing. It doesn't even look like ogre-like or anything. It's just oddly, right? It's not like, it doesn't look super demonic in any way. It just looks like a mask. So it's a little bit disappointing. But, I guess it's fine. It just, I don't know, it does disappoint me when I read Oni mask and I'm like, ooh! And then I see it and I go, oh, okay. No, that's kind of lame. But he takes it off, which was actually concealing, the fact that it was him. It's similar to that hood that Amelia has, right? And he reveals it's him. It's the Emperor. This creates a problem because the old man is very old and, will die soon. And he always wanted to take out the Emperor. So we get a loop here because he's way too quick to handle and he kills all of them, right? And he happens to be a shinobi or ninja, right? Whichever term we want to use, right? But I guess shinobi would be the more correct one here, right? Given the scenario and all that and how he is, right? But yeah, so we create a loop here. We're back, right? Back to the literal moment of him making tea and all that and asking them about stuff. And Subaru goes on to mention that he wants to kill the Emperor, right? He's almost trying to get it out of him, even though Olbert's not going to admit it. And it's just that constant, back and forth and everything. Until he decides, you know what, we're going to play a game. We'll play a game of tag. And that will determine if, because you guys have some information I want, but I'll also just piss off, right? I'll piss off, and, maybe from there they can also, persuade him to join them, right? All that type of shit, which would also help. But from there it's okay, now they have to play a game of tag with him, which actually turns out to be hide and seek, because he's going to make it fair for them. And I guess hide and seek does not exist in this universe, but hide and seek, so they're going to play it 3 times, and from there, if they can get it 3 times, boom, they're done, they get what they want. As well as, Subaru makes the additional thing, you'll turn us all back to normal, where he makes the joke of oh, you know what, if I win, you're all going to have to wait 10 years, right, all that shit. So the game of hide and seek now begins, and they simply have to go and find him. And first it's behind the eyelids, I think is something like that, which is literally they leave the room, they come back, they point, and he's there, right? That simple. Then he does the second one, and Subaru goes outside and immediately just gets fucking killed. And then we loop back to the moment of him saying like hide and seek, but Subaru doesn't realize it for a reason I'll go into very soon. And Subaru just goes like, oh, I found you, and he's like, oh, what do you mean, right? It's very confusing. But then he realizes we're back to square one. Now, why is Subaru acting like this? Good question. So he's starting to have a side effect with him turning into a child, and technically all of them are. I mean, more so I'd say Subaru and Al. I didn't really notice it with Medium at all, but Subaru and Al especially, right? Like, they may be weaker and everything, right? Like, Al and Medium can't hold their swords as well, right? As they could, and all that. But there's definitely some problems to it, and part of it for Subaru is he's forgetting shit. He's not remembering about Return by Death, right? It's becoming something he's slowly forgetting. He started forgetting about Beatrice a little bit, right? His contract with Beatrice and all that. And speaking of that, I didn't mention it at the start, but I feel like now's the apt time to mention it. Obviously, his gate is fucked, right? But thanks to Beatrice, that situation kind of gets fixed. She's not here, and if she isn't there soon, there's a good chance he just dies as a result, and that could create a problem considering, he'll just loop over and over again to whatever point it may be, and it's not like he can make her come any quicker. So it's more so a situation of hopefully she and Amelia and all them get there decently quick, because that could be, a problem if it's not sorted out. But he's forgetting about all that shit, right? He does remember, like, Beatrice after he thinks about it, but he realizes he's just having trouble remembering shit, right? It's almost less forgetting, but it's more so he tries to remember shit and it just doesn't work out well, right? But from here, we do the first part of hide and seek, there he is, bam, done. Okay, second part. And now we enter the situation of a fuckload of the citizens in the city are trying to attack them. And they all have like flames in their eyes and everything, right? Or in one of their eyes, I think it's like the right or something. I think it's the right eye, they have like a flame there and all that shit. And it turns out to be Yorna's power. Like Yorna's power to this. We saw it a bit earlier with Volume 3, or maybe not, Volume 3, where she fixed the castle and everything after they broke out, right? She had some weird shit to her. It was also like her smoke was causing some shit with the needles or whatever. I forgot if they were like the stingers, whatever it may be, right? Needles that were thrown towards in her direction, kind of. They just got like the fucked off, essentially. I'm gonna say, right? That's how I'm gonna word it, right? Just no. So that happened with her, and we find out that this is also part of her power because this is a soul marriage technique, which is similar to contracts that spirits have, right? Like similar to Subaru and Beatrice and all that shit. But it's this weird thing that she has with the citizens, and she's done it in some way, where now they have her ability and all that. They like physically will not die, essentially, in a way. Like they'll just keep getting back up. They'll be fine. They'll be healed, right? And now that we figure out what to do, Tarita tries to cause a distraction, and all of like the rest of the group is trying to figure out what to do because they have to find Olbert probably, because Olbert is most likely conspiring with Tanza, right? Tanza isn't really like huge on the fact of what's going on with Yorna, right? Like if they get Yorna on their side, then Yorna might just like not necessarily be in the city or anything like that because she might be assisting them. Therefore, it kind of fucks over the whole place. This city, the whole thing about it is Yorna loves everybody there and hates her enemies, but everybody there is loved, essentially, right? That's the big thing. So it's understandable why she would act like that and everything. And Tanz is kind of causing this by having her disappear, and now all these citizens are pissed and try to find where she is because they think that it was like those people who did it, right? They were the last people to see her. And Olbert is helping her in a way by just hiding her someplace, and then of course hiding himself. So they have to find Olbert now in order to find her. And it's around this time where they're trying to handle like the citizens while also figuring out what to do, kind of. And then Louise just pops off on them. She's going off. She's using a whole bunch of abilities. But this makes something clear about what she's doing. She's using a bunch of abilities here. Now, I thought at first, with Arc 6, when we got to Arc 6 and the shit with Arc 6 went down, I thought it was something like, oh, she, in a way, used her authority against herself and that caused amnesia and now she doesn't have it anymore. No. Very much no. Whatever happened in Arc 6 happened. And I'm going to be honest, I'm going to mention it now. I'm not going to save it for later, although I'll discuss it more later. I think some shit happened where one of two things. One, possibly it might relate to something because of Ren waking up. It almost seems like she's acting very similar to how Ren would, right? She's specifically clinging to Subaru and all that. I mean, she's clinging to everybody in a way, but especially him. She's running straight for him first, right? She knew about the healing stuff. She's trying to protect him, right? Especially in this scenario, she's protecting him. All that shit, right? Also, I should note that Subaru is just like also trying to remember why he hates her and everything. As a result, he's actually helping her, right? And this does create a nice scene where it's like, because it's very clear by this point, Louise isn't necessarily a bad person right now. And at least right now, she's not a bad person, right? We can tell by now that she isn't. And Subaru didn't really trust that or anything because, how she was like earlier, this could be a facade or something like that. But by this point, he's having trouble remembering, and as a result, he's helping her out, right? They're helping each other out and all that. But it's a weird thing with Louise, because it almost seems like that, but there is something else I thought of. And I don't know how correct this would be, but there's something else I thought of, is all of these memories of herself, of Subaru, of like Ren, all that, right? I was almost wondering if it's creating this weird amalgamation of her, right? Because she had Subaru's memories as part of it, right? Before in Arc 6, she did have his memories. So it now had me wondering, like, maybe this is a weird amalgamation of, like, her, right? Where she's just, like, she has all this stuff mixed together, and it's, like, she's a good person now in a way, but, like, it's all, these sorts of memories just pile on one after another. That was something I was thinking about. I feel like it's one or the other, really. I don't feel like it's just her being herself or anything. I kind of doubt that because it just doesn't fully, fit in there, I'd say. Right? But I think it's one of those two things where it's like, it's either this weird mess of memories or it's like, she's just Ren, right? Ren is very distant to Subaru now, but Louise is her, essentially, right? I'm thinking it's one of those two things. But what this does show in this scene is that she still has her authority. She is still a Sin Archbishop. She doesn't know, most likely, and, she's not necessarily using the actual power of tap on a person and lick, right? She's not doing that, but it does show that she still has that power, right? And eventually, like, the group is confused because they're like, she was this fucking powerful, but you're worried about her and everything, like, what's going on? And Subaru just outright fucking goes and says it, which, I mean, I guess it makes sense. He wants to get rid of their worry. But he outright tells them that she is the Sin Archbishop of Gluttony. And it's weird. Like, I almost want to know more of why. I get that archbishops are, a big problem within the world of the series. But Medium is the first one to react, and she is horrified at hearing that. Al thinks it's a joke, which Subaru clarifies it isn't. And his immediate retort to that is taking out his sword and being ready to kill her, right? And Vincent makes the mention of, like, well, anybody in the Empire who serves the witch is executed immediately. So that creates, the problem of, yeah, all of them are probably going to try and kill Louise, or at least, maybe not Medium, who knows, Medium's scenario we might have to figure out because she does see Louise as a child in a way, but at the same time, right? So, that's a bit weird. But for Vincent and Al, it's like, oh man, we don't know if Vincent might just kill her. I mean, Al is probably going to try to. But before anything can happen, Louise essentially grabs Subaru. I think she grabs Subaru. I don't think he grabs her. But she grabs Subaru and does the leaper shit. That shit where, like, Lai and all of them teleported super fast. She doesn't. She does the leaper stuff and gets the fuck out of there. And they are now separated, right? They are separated from the other group. They're on the run. There's people around, right? She's just fighting them out of self-defense and, like, still running with Subaru. And eventually they come across a man, Ubilk, I think is his name, everything. And he helps them and all that shit. Like, he looks at Subaru's hand and figures out, like, oh, the answer you're looking for is within yourself or something like that, right? And from there, Subaru realizes where the second hiding place is. They start running, they go off, and we learn that that dude happens to be the Stargazer. He's an important character from what I understand, mentioned early on, but we don't know much of him right now, at least I don't think we do, right? He does seem important though, considering he's called the Stargazer, and this series loves to have shit related to stars, right? So, he's probably going to be a very prominent figure later, but right now, this is all we really get out of him. Eventually, Subaru and Louise make their way to the castle, where, you know, they sneak in, and they're trying to get to the top because they realize that he's at the top. Subaru realized that when he was thrown in the air earlier, at one point by one of the deer, or horned people, I guess, in the village, or the city. And now they have to get to the top, and Yorna, like, sees them and everything, and of course, her being super kind, right, she just, like, lets them be, right, she's helping them out and everything, and just talking to her, right, she's very reasonable. I will say, I am somebody who enjoys characters who are like this, right, very much, like, loves this type of thing of, like, loves the people in their city and all that type of shit, right, even, like, super nice to children and all that, and then, you know, towards their enemies, they are completely just angry at them and everything and all that shit, right, like, despise them, right, I do really like characters like that, so Yorna is starting to grow on me as a character a whole lot, but then she helps them out, they make it to the top, and that's where Olbert is, and now we begin this fight, because she's trying to figure out where Tanza is, right, Tanza's gone, and it's revealed that, you know, he knows, and now there's this just anger that she has towards him and all that, and they start fighting. It makes this huge fight that's actually really fucking cool to read. I can't wait to see it animated in however many years it takes. I hope it's animated well, and possibly, depending on if White Fox is not handling things well, hopefully by another studio. But if they start handling things well, maybe by then, right? But anyways, creates a really sick fight, and I actually really loved reading it. It was really fucking cool to go along, because Yorna's almost like, just, her defenses can't be broken, but then, like, Olbert is trying all sorts of tactics and is super fast, and it's just a constant back and forth where they can't really, like, almost land a decisive hit on each other. And then Yorna says the word of "you low life," or I guess 2 words. And now we begin the most interesting thing out of this whole fucking arc, because holy shit. Maybe not most interesting, there's been a lot of interesting shit in this arc, but it's definitely up there. And possibly out of the whole series, it's made me go fuck, right? Like, it's something. Because I've mentioned the rabbits before and how they were a real bad death, right? And I mentioned the hungry hippos and how that death was really bad, right? But this one might be bad because of the timer and the shit going on and all that. We get the 11 seconds of despair, I think it's called, or something like that, right? And it is essentially this explosion that happens because of, like, Olbert using one of his tactics, right? And now Subaru's, like, one of his eyes popped out, the other one is just fucked over, completely red, right? And it's a situation of they're trying to figure out what to do here, because they have 11 seconds to figure out something. The first loop, I mean, Louise gets killed, right, when he tries to do a move of, like, oh, they'll use the leaper to get towards him, and all this shit. She gets killed, all that. Yorna tries to, essentially, like, kiss him, right, and, like, tells him to love her, right? Which, this is where we see how the technique works, that soul marriage technique. This is how we see how it works, or at least I think that's the implication, is that person has to love her, she'll give them a kiss, bam, that, like, makes the marriage, right? The problem with this, of course, is Subaru's not going to accept that because there's a woman he already loves. So, damn. And we just go through constant loops here where it is like situation after situation, he tries something different and it just gets fucked over and it's constant and he can't break out of it. And he's trying to figure out what would everybody else do, right? He's constantly thinking to himself, like, what would somebody else do right here? What would they do? What would they do? And all that. And I do really love how this scene concludes, right? How this loop concludes. Because as soon as he figures it out, or pretty much before he figures it out, right? A little bit before he figures it out, he's just thinking of all the voices in his head and all the people that he's, met, that have helped him out, everything. And the voice that he hears in order to decide what to do is Shaora's. And that was something that made me really happy, right? Because throughout the series, as we've gotten further and further, there have been more, like, encouraging lines that have just resonated with him constantly, like, over and over again, right? Like, repeated throughout the series. And now we get, like, Shaola, right? Now she's the important one, and she gets to have her line through his head. And as soon as that happens, he figures out what to do. He gets Louise to, like, jump over. He grabs onto, Olbert, and, they fall down onto the roof. But at that moment, Subaru's won. Because the original thing was play a game of tag. And Subaru has got him. And, he's crying. Louise is crying. They're holding Yorna. Olbert tries to shut them up, and then Yorna shuts him up for, trying to shut them up. And we get that great scenario where he won. He played the game of tag and he won. He actually did it. So that's really fucking great, right? They managed to do that. And now that fight is over. They now know where Tens is at and everything, and the actual Vincent happened to be discussing it with her while the fake one was in the room, right? All this shit. And it's like, oh, wow, alright. Now we overall have an agreement with Tenza where, like, it's understood about what's going on and how, like, the stuff with Yorna will probably be fine, right? And Subaru has the whole situation figured out on his end, right, where all that's done. And now he will be returned back to normal. And of course, Olbert, just helps him out and is ready to turn him back to normal. And as soon as it starts, I knew a little bit. I knew a very, very little bit. I barely knew that much about this moment. I didn't know what it related to or anything. I just saw that, like, I had seen the line of "found you," as somebody mentioning that, and I, like, didn't know what it was. But earlier back when he was turned into a kid, they bring up the point of Satella constantly, like, doing the "I love you" type of shit, but she ends it with "where are you," right? As soon as he's returned back to normal, we immediately hear just the line of "found you," and as soon as that happens, giant fucking black shadow just where he's, like, standing, right where he's at, and all hell breaks loose from what we can tell. Al is freaking out. We don't know why. I'm gonna find out why eventually, right, or soon enough, rather. But yeah, and with that we end the volume, which is shocking that it ends on this. I mean, I know they like to end volumes on cliffhangers sometimes, but it's like, oh man, that's quite the thing to end it on. And sadly, that's where we're ending it on here, because I'm not going to go into volume 5, right, for reasons I've stated and all that, right. And I also just have not, like, read it myself yet fully, right. That's like 12 extra chapters or something, right. I think we'll just save that for either part 2 or something else I want to discuss. But now let's get into my thoughts on the overall arc. But now for my overall thoughts on the arc. Now, I do like Arc 7 a whole lot, right? I do think it's actually pretty damn good. There's one thing I'm going to say about it, right? This isn't a flaw or anything. I actually think this is fine. But it's interesting. And it's the fact that we're now at, like, volume 4, right? Or I guess we're at volume 5, really. But we're at volume 4 in terms of what I've reviewed here. And really, we haven't made an insane amount of progress from the overall goal in the story, right? I think this is fine, and I actually like that. But it does show me what you all meant by it'll be a while till Arc 7's done, because, yeah, the current moment, we're trying to get a singular Divine General to, the side of the main cast, and we don't have that yet, right? That's not there. it's like, fuck, right? We don't have any of them on our side yet. All this shit, right? And we're on the 4th volume. The 3rd one established that we need this. I mean, the 2nd one is where we saw the 1st one, right? Like the 1st one that we were seeing in the main line. So it's like, damn, right? It's gonna be a bit. But it's definitely interesting. I do like that a lot. It's a weird thing to almost say that I like, I guess, from a certain perspective. But I do think it's nice. It'll be a while till we're done. But this does mean that Arc 7 can build more, right? That's something I would say, is that does mean the arc can build more. And that's really nice. That means, you know, as we get further into it and everything, there'll be more and more that's revealed, more insane shit. I gotta mention, every chapter in Arc 7, or at least overall every chapter, did end in such a way where I did really like it, right? It left on an interesting cliffhanger, and that was really good. I like that a lot. I will say though, at least flaw-wise, right? I do think it starts off like that, right? But there's always a hook for me, right? Arc 5. When we get to the City Hall fight, that's a huge, like, hook, right? Or maybe not the City Hall fight, but more so Volume 2 as a whole, and the end of Volume 1, that was a hook for me. Arc 6, we get to Volume 2 and, like, hook, right? Like, same thing there. With this, I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't even insanely hooked until we got to the 3rd volume, and, like, the later half of the 3rd volume. Because honestly, I can't even lie, I read maybe 1 or 2 chapters a day early on. It was like, it wasn't to say it was boring, right? Like I said, it was still really interesting, and I did like how each chapter ended off. But it didn't feel like there was anything insane yet, right? It didn't feel like there was anything super, like, oh, this is really fucking cool, right? I like that about Volume 3, right, towards the end, because then it was like, oh, that was the hook. That was a really good hook at that, right? It got me interested to know more, and then I read Volume 4, and I'm like, that was insanely good, right? But I will say early on, I wasn't reading super fast myself, just because, like, I don't know, I didn't feel that hooked, right? Even, like, starting it, I read, like, 2 or 3 chapters on the first day. Even though, I was going to go, you know, super into it, and I did, of course. Right? I did go super into my reading and got it all accomplished. It was like, damn, right, I do wish it would hook me more with this a little bit. It just didn't have that feeling for me, which I know it might be different for some people. That's just my own personal thing. But yeah. Now, character-wise, right, because I want to speak about this, of course, because I feel like this relates to arcs. I do actually like a lot of the progression here and the new characters for the most part and all that shit, right? Subaru got some good progression here. I do like that he's now set back because the You're Not a Hero line, and then all this shit, and like Louise, right? Him and Louise, and the building, like, relationship there and all that shit, right? How, like, he starts off just not wanting to associate with her because of what she is, right? But then we get to Volume 4, and now he's, like, trusting her and everything, and he's, like, he's crying because she's okay, and all that, right? And, like, they're crying with each other. Louise is another great thing. Like I mentioned, those 2 fonts, you know, I'm interested to know more about that, right? I think that could definitely be really good. And then, of course, well, I do like how she's progressed, right? Because this is all the way, like, this feels like a setback to Arc 2 to when she was, you know, completely distant, right? Didn't really, like, want to associate with Subaru and all that shit, right? I do like how they, like, handled Ren here and everything, and I do think that, like, adds to her more, right? I do think this adds to her more, the character. I'm interested to know what happens. I have a follow-up video related to this in a way, to her and Louise, that's going to be coming out next week. I'll go more into that in a moment after I'm done my thoughts on the arc, right? I'm going to go more into that. But, yeah, I do like how she's progressed here. Vincent is interesting, right? I mean, he's very similar to Priscilla in a way. I want to almost say, like, nicer, right? But they're obviously, like, siblings, as EX5 establishes, or something like that, from what I understand, right? And he also has the Yang sword or something like that. He has, like, something like that, right? So that's interesting. But I do, you know, I'm interested in him. I'm interested to learn more and all that shit. I really like Flop. I really like Medium. The Shidarakians are definitely pretty neat, right? I want to see more out of Torita. I think I'll really enjoy her. I like her at the current moment of like not feeling like she's worthy, but she'll probably have her moment later, right? Where we build up to that point, right? I guess the Divine Generals we've met so far, Akira, yep, that's what her name. Arakia seems pretty neat. I do like her ability, and I'm interested to know her relationship more with Priscilla. I know there's stuff with them in the X5, but I'm interested to learn more, of course. Ability-wise, though, she seems neat right now, right? Todd's a psycho, but I do like how he's written. He's written really well where it does feel like that, right? Jamal, he's also decently written because he almost feels like one, right? Like similar to Todd, but like he's not in a way. It's weird to say, but I almost want to say he seems more rational, and he's not. But I think you might be able to understand the general gist of what I'm trying to say with that, right? It is like he's a bit crazy and everything, but I guess like from a certain sense he's a little bit more human than Todd is, right? Is how I want to word that. Yorna, I'm really enjoying so far. I'm excited to see more out of her. Decent bit. Albert seems pretty nice, honestly. I'm also enjoying him. I'm enjoying those two. And I mean, I guess the other characters I don't really have enough out of right now to properly have an opinion. And I think I have to see the others grow a bit more, right? For me to think more of them. I mean, like Ubilk, we barely know shit about him, right? But I'm interested to see more about him, I will say. Who else is there? Honestly, I'm trying to think of like, am I forgetting a character? I almost feel bad because I might be forgetting characters or like here or something. I think that's about everybody that's there, yeah. But yeah, like overall, I'm enjoying these characters a lot, and I do think of Al, right? Fuck, I forgot Al, and I just mentioned him earlier. Al's getting to that point where he's in my top, like getting close to my top 10. I won't even lie, so is Louise. I'll get more into that later, right? But I'll have it on screen later, and once again, you'll see why. But yeah, overall, I think this arc's turning out to be really good. I'm excited to see more. I am a little bit worried about that one thing I know about, right? Or at least know a little bit about. Hopefully it's fine. But other than that, I think this might all turn out pretty decently, and I think it might actually end up better than Arc 5 for me. Now, before we get to my top 10 and everything in the outro, please stick around, please. I have a lot of important things to get into today. Some of it relates to these reviews, right? Some of it relates to other stuff. I just want you all to overall listen because I have a lot to discuss, and I really need to get these updates out there. So just stick around, and then, we'll get onto the top 10 afterwards, alright? So anyways, let's go on to some updates. So I have my phone here because there's a lot that I have to mention, but I'm just going to go through an overall list. First of all, I'm going to mention it again. I mentioned it on the previous video, but I'm going to mention it again and more in depth here as well. Or I guess about the same amount, but the yearly tourney, right? We do a yearly tournament type of thing on the channel on different games that just have character customization. They're really fun. People who have been around for them can probably say that they've enjoyed them, right? From what I can tell, those streams get a decent bit of views and a decent bit of likes, right? It seems like people do enjoy them. We get some engagement in there, which is really nice, right? It seems like those streams are very well enjoyed on the channel. The only thing is they're yearly and they're at the end of the year, so that's the only thing, right? But I do like to make those streams a culmination of different things, such as like just funny stuff, or like members of my friend group and all that type of stuff, or like stuff that's happened throughout the year, right? That's part of like this the tournament this year and all that. As well as, I would say last year a bit as well. I do try to get stuff that represents the year in there because I think that works well. But of course, part of this year is of course taking some of the videos we've done and all shit like that and everything and shoving it in there as the big tournament thing, whatever you want to mention. I guess this year we're going to call it a rumble, but the big bracket, all that type of stuff, right? We try to fit all that in there, right? Now, you might be asking, why am I bringing this up? Well, first of all, if it isn't obvious, we're going to have some ReZero stuff in there, right? Two things, in fact. One of them is guaranteed. The other one, well, I'll get into more on that in a moment, but something to mention about these tournaments first, though, is whoever wins the whole entire thing, right? Maybe not the whole entire thing. They don't have to win the last match. If they win the last match, though, that tournament now becomes their tournament for the next year, right? That's essentially what I do for it. But whoever essentially wins every match prior to that, like wins the whole big, like whole thing, right? Essentially the rumble, the bracket, all that, right? Whoever wins that, I will have to stream something related to that thing, right? Pretty much it's always going to be a game, most likely, right? Except for that one time where it was Dr. Pepper who won. I don't know what I was supposed to do about that, but I guess I probably should have figured something out. Maybe I'll make it up to all of you at some point, right, with that. But overall, I do try to do something big there and stream, something like that. I mean, I guess I did technically do something for Sundowner, right, because we had Sundowner from Metal Gear Rising win last year, and I will say I streamed Metal Gear Rising in the same year, so that counts. Even if that stream happened a bit earlier, I'm going to say that counts. We still, celebrated him in a way, right? Even though I probably called him the easiest boss in the game. Probably. I assume I did. I most likely did. I kind of shot on our champion. But anyways, so the big thing is I try and play like something game related to that character. If not, I find something else I can do in there as a choice. Like one of the things is like if one of my friend group win, like somebody from my friend groups win, they get to essentially choose what I'm gonna do for a stream, like game wise, right, and all that shit. Now, why that's important is I do know that there's a certain ReZero game that I can play. I mean, I know there's many, but I think the one specifically that I will be able to play is the one about the secret candidate for the royal selection who's also related to a certain character on that cover right there, number 17, right? I do know that there's that one, right? And I think that's the one. Might be wrong. Borrowing it off a good friend. Borrowing the game off a good friend if the ReZero character does win. So there's a chance for that if that character wins. Now, the reason to bring this up is I have a poll right here. Took me a while to get to this point, I'm sorry, but I just had to explain the context of the scenario. Alright, there's a poll right here. It has a bunch of characters on it. Now before you click on the ReZero character that's there, right, because you might want that ReZero character in, please just consider all the options. I have no problem if you want to choose that character. Please just consider all the options and think about if any of them pique your interest more, right? No problem if you want to choose that character, just please consider the others, right? I don't want people to bandwagon all on that one character because I see it, right? If that character wins, that's fine, right? I just wanted to make sure that everybody looks at all the options, sees what's available, all that, right? That's good. Now with that out of the way, right? Move past that. Let's talk about what comes next for the channel overall, right? We do have the ARC's 1 to 3 review, and I'm going to do something for that so that it's quicker, but still efficient. Quicker, but still efficient for that review. Trust me, I have an idea. But, I'm going to do something for that where we essentially, can get it out faster. You guys can still all enjoy. You'll see my opinion on the ARC. I'll understand the content now, right? And we'll all have a good time with that. That said though, do not expect that to be the next big video on the channel. Because, as you may know, we have this series that's known as Get Into on the channel. Now I would really, really hope you all check out the next Get Into. I hope you all check out the Get Intos that are on the channel because the whole point of Get Into is to get into a series. The next one we're going to be talking about though is my absolute favorite series of all time of anything, right? It's something I really do love. It's something that's very meaningful to me and all that shit, right? And it's held higher than ReZero and stuff like that, right? I'm very excited to talk about it. I want to make that video big and have the production on it decently like good, right? Not anything insane production-wise, because it's not like I have the tools for that, right? But I definitely want to make it enough where it's a good video, where it's like packed full of shit. There's skits in there, right? There's all sorts of stuff, right? All of it works out. I want to make it good like that, but you know, I do want to mention, please check it out, because I don't know if some people, you know, will see that and then just possibly ignore it or something. I'm really hoping you do check it out. I want to get into videos like, for the most part, to be the big viewed things on the channel, because the whole point of them is to like check them out, and then maybe it piques your interest in something. You check it out, you see if you enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, you drop it. But if you do, you know, you continue on with it. You enjoy it, and then wow, look, you gained an interest for something that I can still continue to talk about on the channel, right? And of course, you know, that keeps me happy because I get to entertain all of you, and I'm happy with that, right? And then all of you get the like series or whatever it may be that I'm talking about as this new thing to enjoy, right? It's a nice share, I'd say. I also want to mention, I do want to redo the current 2 get-intos on the channel. I'm going to wait a while to do them. The Yakuza one, I think I'm going to do as a collective thing of the series, right? It'll be done at a later point. I'll decide when, but I think it'll be at a later point. I'll do a whole collective thing on the series. I'll make that bigger. And the ReZero one, I'm also going to do as a bigger thing later. I specifically want to wait till Arc 5 is fully adapted and hopefully adapted well. But if it's not adapted well, I'm just going to talk about it from the light novel / web novel perspective. And as a result, it won't be a spoiler anymore because it'll be adapted already. I want to wait for that because I want to talk about a certain chapter you all may know, right? I think that will really work out well for it. Those 2 videos were definitely a learning process for me, right? I am very proud of them, but it's like, it was something that like, okay, I know how to improve from here with those. I'm happy with how they turned out, but I definitely want to make them better. Just mentioning that. Now, I mean, I guess I mentioned the Arcs 1 to 3 thing, so I mean, well, you know, we have that. I'm going to work on that quickly, so it won't be out too long after the Get Into, right? I think we'll do the Get Into, it'll be out, and then maybe like 2 or 3 weeks after the Get Into's out, you'll get that review. You'll get it pretty quickly, don't worry, right? Arc 4, it might be a bit. I do want to mention, I want to take a bit in terms of a reading break. I've been reading non-stop since like April, technically March, right? If we really want to push it, we could go all the way back to like December when I was reading Arc 5, but generally I'd say April, right? April is when I started the What Ifs, and I started the EX novels after, right? And I started Arc 7 like recently, right? All that shit. It's been a lot, right? I know I've had just days where I haven't been reading, but I've also been busy on those days, right? I've been insanely busy as of lately. So it's been hard to have all this to work on and everything. I just want to take a reading break where I'm able to do shit. I might do some streams. I did mention that I have to still stream Pokemon. We're still gonna do that. I just have to find the time for it, right? All this shit. So I want to take a bigger reading break than usual. And part of it could be like, you know, that Get Into, right? Part of it's working on that Get Into. But I'm definitely gonna go through it. Now luckily, Arcs 1 to 3 I will get done within that reading break, which might sound ridiculous. You'll understand why later. You'll understand why later. It sounds absurd, but trust me, I'll have the time for it. But anyways, with that out of the way, I can move on to the next thing, the follow-up video to this. So that is coming out next week, which, something else to mention on here that I also have on my list. We've officially hit the 1-year anniversary of the series, which actually we hit, I think, in April or May or something like that. One of those 2 months, I think it might have been May. Sadly, I wasn't ready to make a video on it, right, or anything like that, so damn. I guess you could technically say the Capella video was kind of that, but it wasn't. But I mean, it's the closest thing to that, I guess you could say. But yeah, we've hit the 1-year anniversary of the series, which is pretty huge. And, or 1 year, did I say 1 year? 10 year. 1 year anniversary. The series has been out for 1 year. I'm sorry. I'm a little bit, I'm burning out. My brain is completely burning out and malfunctioning. I accidentally said 1 year. Feel free to make fun of me in the comments. I'll allow it. I'll completely allow it, you know, making fun of me for that. But we've hit the 10-year anniversary for the series, which is huge. 1 year is also huge, but it's not 1 year, it's 10 years. There's a 0 beside it. And yeah, I'm very excited to see what they announce in July, right? Because from what I've been told, there's shipping announced in July. I'm excited. If that leak is true, that means another anime season, which I don't know how keen I am on it because, you know, White Fox, but at the same time, it's Arc 5. I'm gonna be excited either way, right? I might complain, but I'll complain after I've had my enjoyment out of it. But that's exciting and everything. I will say, this is probably what confused me. I'm now realizing, I'm looking down at my notes, this is what confused me. As of next week, I debated on making this video, like, ready for next week, right? And this was part of the whole, like, I might do Volume 5. I debated on making this video ready for next week, because, fun fact, next Saturday, I will officially have been into this series for a whole year. Exactly next Saturday. That was when I finished the anime. When I finished Arc 4 and all that, and I was very satisfied. It also happens to be the day that I looked up a certain spoiler, because, as you'll see on screen now, this is, I looked it up and then messaged a good pal of mine about it, and yeah, it also happens to be that day. So, that's interesting. Yeah, if you're wondering, I mean, I think I've mentioned it before, but if you didn't know the full thing or anything like that, I did happen to look it up immediately after I was done. Same night. So, you know, there's that. But, overall, you know, there's also 1 year of me knowing that, right? And now we've officially hit the point where it's no longer a spoiler for me, because I've seen it. Except I already spoiled myself, but I've seen it at this point, right? And we're, like, at this point. So the one thing I debated on doing is I was wondering if I wanted to do the Arcs 1 to 3 review for next week, right? I felt like I could push it for that. Can't. Obviously can't. Way too little time now to do so. However, the follow-up video that relates to the thing I looked up as a spoiler, as well as, you know, another character that I want to discuss more about and everything, right? That'll go up next week. So, look forward to that next Saturday, right after this premieres. And there's one other thing I do want to mention, which is related to Volume 5 and all that. And it's the fact that I was thinking about doing these reviews in a different way soon. Because, obviously, we're almost running out of shit to do. There's, like, from what I understand, there's 2 other what-ifs I can do, maybe more. I don't know how many more. I think there's 2 more what-ifs and all that. But I want to save that for April in a way. If we have to, we might, you know, do it earlier, but still. Right, I almost want to do that, like, as an April Fool's thing. But I was thinking about it, and I'm like, you know, once we're done Arcs 1 to 3, and, like, we're at Arc 4 by the end of the year, right, I'm reading through that, and then I read Arc 4, and I do the review, right, and I talk about my feelings on Arc 4, and comparing it to the anime and all that. I thought about it, and I'm like, you know, I'm gonna just run out of shit to do. Like, I'm still gonna try and do shit for the series, right, I'm gonna do the theory videos that I've already done, similar to, like, the Capella stuff, right, all that, right. I'm still gonna do more of those. I'm still gonna do other shit, like I've been debating on doing, like, tier lists and stuff like that, like, to discuss characters who I really enjoy. Maybe, you know, doing a tier list of the arcs, right, doing all that shit, right, all this type of stuff. I think that could work out well, because you can understand my, like, opinions of stuff more and everything. But, I mean, for the arcs, I might wait till, you know, I'm done reading Arc 4. But I was thinking about it, and also, you know, if the anime gets announced and everything, right, and that it's, like, released at some point soon, right, or episodes are released some point soon, I'm probably going to do reactions to those. We'll do live streams where we do reactions to those, right. That'll be a nice little thing. We'll just have a timer there, right, just sync it up. We do 3, 2, 1, go, bam. We start watching. It's enjoyable, right? But I was thinking about it, like, other than that, there won't be really much review-wise, so this is something I want an opinion on from all of you. Let me know in the comments. I might make a poll. I think I might make a poll. But also let me know in the comments, just because like, that tells me more, right? I'm gonna make another poll. I'll put the link here or something, or it'll be in the description or in the comments, right? And it will simply be just, what should we do from this point on? Do we want to essentially, and this is an idea I thought of, right? Do we want to have me review every volume as they come out, like as full, right? Not every chapter, but every volume, right? In full. Do we want to have me review those? And then from there, I do a very short video, which eventually, after a while, once an arc is finished, we essentially take all those videos and put them in one like this, right? Exactly formatted like this, right? Do we want that? Or do we simply just want to wait, right? I have no problems waiting, but I was thinking about it from the perspective of like something like Arc 8, right? I'm sure some people don't mind waiting with the Arc 7 review, right? They might not mind waiting for the second half. But I was only thinking about it like, if we're on Arc 8, it's gonna be a while till I do that review. So I want to know the overall opinion. If you want to see more of me being like, okay, I'll do, each of these volumes, I'll review them, right? And then it's like, oh, you'll get a shorter video, but you'll get my opinion on that, right? And I'll give an updated thought on the arc or something like that. Or at least I'll give an updated thought by the end of the actual arc. But overall, essentially what those videos would be is, take, for example, Volume 5, right? If we were to do a video in Volume 5, it would start off much like this video starts off, right? Then we go to Volume 5 would be like Volume 1. We do that whole section, and then the video ends. And then when we do Volume 6, right? It immediately starts with the whole volume cut in, right? Like the Volume 6. And then it's me talking about it, and then the video ends, right? That way, when we take the whole thing and we put it in one, bam, there we go, it's a whole ass video, right? It's a whole hour or two long video, right? I think that might work out well. Let me know what you all think though. I'm debating on doing that, but I wanted some overall, just to see what people think, because obviously you guys determine that as well, right? You guys determine how the content goes. I kind of like that, but I want to know more from all of you. But that's overall it. I think that's everything on here. I'm looking at it. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you all for listening to those updates. And now, I guess this is the outro, really. Here's the top 10 list right there. I'm just going to show it. I'm just going to show it from now on. It's a whole lot easier than, discussing things, especially because it's not that many changes. So all the changes will be added here, right? They'll just be available here. And there's the top 10 list. Along with that, here we have the characters who are close to top 10. I just felt like adding those because I feel like some people need clarification on where some characters are. I know some people were confused on where Julius was on my list last time. Trust me, I did definitely want to put him on there, but I kind of want a bit more out of him. But that now you see where he's at, right? Where he stands. He could definitely be close. It's just there, right? So that's all that stuff. So yeah, there we go. So thank you all for joining me, right? Enjoy this information of stuff. Thank you all for listening to, of course, my updates and all that, and the review, all that. Just enjoying the video overall. Speaking of reviews, I do want to have a genuine, heartfelt moment here to thank all of you for the Arc 6 video, because I mentioned it before, but it's legitimately crazy to me that video has 500 views and it's still growing an insane amount. It's 1/4 of the way to get into 600 and all that, and I know something like that isn't necessarily huge on this channel considering the unlisted videos, but to me that is huge because that's something I'm passionate about talking about, unlike those other videos, right? The other videos that are unlisted that are popular, I'm not really proud of those, whereas the Arc 6 video I am, right? I do think there was some errors there, like the lighting was too dark, but that's simple shit of I decided to record at night and didn't think about it, right? But yeah, I do want to thank you all for that support. I mentioned it before, I did a whole video on it, right, where I thanked you all for this, but I do really mean it. It means a lot to me when you guys are entertained by this and when you listen to the reviews. And getting that feedback is super nice because it does tell me that you all are enjoying this shit, and it's almost, I almost want to say it's a little bit worrying sometimes, right? It is a bit worrying to get a review out, and I'm not sure how people will take it and everything, how they might see it. So it does make me glad when you guys, see these reviews and you see my opinions on Arc 7 or Arc 5 or Arc 6 or the What Ifs or the EX novels, and you enjoy it, and you share your own opinions and all that, and we can converse from there, right? It feels like a proper community thing, and that makes me really happy. I really enjoy it a lot, but thank you all so much for this shit. Thank you all for watching this. I wonder if this video will become more popular than the Arc 6 one, but then again, the Arc 6 one is promoted on the Reddit, and I don't know if they'd allow self-promotion, because somebody else did that, and thank you once again to that person, right? But that was put on the Reddit, and I don't know that this one will be. If it is, cool, right? And I don't want to self-promote it. I don't like self-promoting my own stuff unless certain scenarios. One thing I will say, actually, just to do a quick self-promotion type of thing, I know I just said I won't, but this is something I will mention. I will absolutely give my opinion on the chapters of Arc 7, right? The chapters I've yet to read. I will give them on Twitter. I'm going to post them on Twitter. Here's the link right now. There you go. That's the card, right? You can find them there. I post other shit on Twitter, right? I've been posting my opinion occasionally on chapters like that, but it's been kind of minimal. You'll get more of that now. It's also where you'll find, other videos in there, right? Like, it's also a good news area, much like the community section. So if you're not going to use the community section, there's also the Twitter, all that. But yeah, other than that, I'm not really huge on self-promoting my stuff. I don't really like it a whole lot. I did it like once recently on Twitter, right, towards something, just because I felt like discussing it, because it was like a YouTuber I really do enjoy, and he was asking about smaller YouTubers and stuff like that with this type of shit, right? And I felt like, you know what, maybe I'll discuss what I do and everything, and I'll show off some of it. But other than that, I'm not really huge on it at all. I don't really like it because I feel like I'm shoving it against somebody's face, and I don't like that. If somebody's gonna find my content, they'll find it, and they'll probably, possibly get entertained by it. If not, they don't get entertained. But it does make me happy if I can entertain even a small amount of people, right? It's like I don't care if I'm not viewed that much by a large amount of people, so long as I can entertain the people that are viewing my videos, right? That's what really matters to me. But thank you all so much for watching. Take care. Have yourself a good night. And yeah, see you on that next Get Into. Oh man, I forgot to do a teaser for the next Get Into. Oh well, I'll just do that later. Now, let's see what I shall pick to read today. What? I feel like there was something there before. Make my hand heavier.